They told you that what matters is what's inside, that appearance doesn't count, that real people see through the surface. That's a beautiful story, and it's costing you a fortune. In the real world, decisions about you are made within the first 3 seconds, before you open your mouth, before you've had a chance to show how intelligent, reliable, or talented you are. The brain of the person across from you has already reached a verdict, and now it's simply looking for confirmation. Machiavelli wrote this 500 years ago. Everyone sees what you appear to be, and few really know what you are. 500 years have passed. Neuroscience has confirmed every word. And here's what makes this uncomfortable. You already know it's true. You felt it yourself. The moment you walked into a room and sensed that the way you looked was either opening doors or quietly closing them. That feeling wasn't paranoia, it was accurate perception. Today, the wolf talks about why your appearance is not vanity and not superficiality. It is your first line of communication, your opening statement before any words are spoken. And while you ignore that line, you're losing before the game has even begun. There's a psychological mechanism that most people have never heard named, but feel every single day. It's called the horn effect. The principle is simple and ruthless. When the brain registers one negative detail, it automatically fills in the rest of the picture in the same shade. Dirty shoes, a wrinkled collar, a cracked phone screen, one detail, and the brain of the person across from you has already painted a complete portrait. Lazy, disorganized, not someone to trust. This isn't a conscious decision, it's evolutionary autopilot. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans survived in groups by reading signals quickly. Someone who can't manage their immediate environment can't manage anything. In nature, predators don't attack the strongest animal in the herd. They attack the one that limps, the one that looks unstable, the one signaling, "I have no resources, I can be taken." When you look disheveled, you're limping, not metaphorically, neurologically. And this mechanism works in both directions. There's also the halo effect, the mirror image, when one positive detail causes the brain to fill in everything else with warmth. Good posture, a clean and composed appearance, a calm and steady gaze, and the person across from you has already unconsciously decided, this one knows what they're doing. This one can be trusted. You haven't said a word yet. The decision has already been made. Discipline is visible. If you can't manage what's on your body, why would anyone believe you can manage something larger? That logic isn't fair, but it's the logic the brain uses, and it uses it on everyone, including you, every single day. Here's the dark paradox that nobody explains in school. Money, opportunity, attention, they don't flow toward those who need them most. They flow toward those who look like they don't particularly need them at all. Walk into a negotiation with desperation in your eyes, and you'll get the worst terms, or a flat refusal, because desperation is a cost signal. It says, "I have no other options. I'll accept anything." And the people across the table feel that, even when they can't articulate it, even when they think they're being perfectly rational. Walk in with the quiet boredom of someone who has options, and the table changes. Terms improve because you look like an investment, not a liability. This isn't cynicism, it's pragmatism wired into human psychology at a level far below conscious thought. Nobody consciously wants to pay for someone else's problems, but everyone wants to attach themselves to someone else's momentum. When you look stable, composed, and unhurried, you reduce the perceived risk of dealing with you. You signal, being around me is safe. Being in business with me is safe. And there's another layer here worth speaking about honestly. Many people unconsciously look diminished, not because they lack money, but because somewhere inside there's a belief, I don't deserve more. Or if I look too polished, people won't accept me. Or simply the fear of standing out, the fear that someone will say, "Who do you think you are?" That's not about clothing, that's about permission. Permission that a person either grants or withholds from themselves.
Your appearance is always a statement about how you perceive your own value, and the world tends to agree with your assessment. Most people think in the wrong order. They say, when I feel confident, then I'll start looking put together. But neuroscience says the opposite. You don't wait for confidence to change how you present yourself. You change how you present yourself, and confidence follows. This isn't a metaphor, it's physiology. When you straighten your spine, the levels of cortisol and testosterone in your blood actually change, measurably. The body begins sending different signals to the brain. The brain begins interpreting the situation differently. You haven't done anything yet, but the chemistry inside you is already different. Psychologists call this embodied cognition. The body and the mind don't operate separately. The way you hold yourself physically has a direct impact on how you think and what you feel. This has been demonstrated across dozens of studies. It's not philosophy, it's mechanics. A well-fitted jacket changes how you walk. Clean shoes change where your eyes go. Not because of magic, but because through these details, you begin to believe in your own seriousness. You stop apologizing for taking up space. The mask becomes the face. And there's another psychological layer here that few people notice. When you begin consciously managing your appearance, you're training your attention to detail. That attention doesn't stay confined to your wardrobe. It begins spreading to everything else, to how you speak, how you listen, whether you keep your word, whether you follow through on small things. External discipline is training for internal discipline. The two are not separate. They're the same habit expressed in different domains. The wolf doesn't dress to impress others. He dresses to remind himself of who he is. There's another dimension of appearance that almost never gets discussed in the context of success. Your environment is part of your image. People don't evaluate you only by how you look in isolation. They evaluate you by who they see you with, who sits at your table, who stands beside you at the entrance, whose name you mention naturally in conversation. Social status transfers through association. This is evolution again. The brain uses social environment as a rapid indicator of reliability. If the people around you command respect, a portion of that respect attaches to you automatically. The reverse is equally true. This doesn't mean abandoning old friends or becoming a cold calculation. It means being conscious of the fact that environment shapes perception. And if you want to be perceived differently, it's worth asking what environment you're actively constructing around yourself. You can't spend every evening with people who complain endlessly, resist change, and go nowhere, and then expect the world to see you as someone moving forward. Environment is readable. It always has been. The wolf is selective about which forest he walks through, not out of arrogance, out of awareness. Your appearance doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's always read in context, and context changes everything. The same person in the same clothes can be perceived as an authority in one room and completely invisible in another. A dark suit signals competence in a law firm and quiet aggression in a creative agency. Casual clothing reads as confidence in a tech startup and carelessness in a bank. The signal isn't just what you wear, it's whether what you wear fits the environment you're trying to move through. Psychologists call this contextual congruence. The brain doesn't simply ask, does this person look good? It asks, does this person belong here? And belonging, that subtle, almost wordless sense of fitting an environment, is one of the most powerful trust signals that exists. When you look like you belong somewhere, people stop questioning your presence and start engaging with your ideas. This is why the most sophisticated people don't dress to impress, they dress to belong, deliberately. They study the room before they enter it. They understand that dressing slightly above the average of a given environment communicates ambition without arrogance. Dressing far above it signals disconnection. Dressing below it signals either deliberate rebellion or simple unawareness, and neither serves you when you want to be taken seriously. And beneath all of this, there's a subtler layer still. The way you show up visually, communicates how much cognitive attention you've invested in the interaction itself. Arriving prepared, physically, visually, intentionally, tells the other person, I thought about this. I considered this moment worth preparing for. That signal of respect creates a response in kind. People rise to meet the level of care you show them simply by showing up as though the meeting mattered. The reverse is equally true. Showing up as though the interaction was an afterthought tells the other person you don't value their time. They feel that, even when they're too polite to name it. The wolf doesn't wear the same coat in every forest. He reads the terrain first. Now, the most important thing to understand about all of this, you don't need brands. You don't need expensive things. You need to control entropy. Entropy is the natural state of chaos. Everything tends toward disorder, worn edges, wrinkles, stains, decay. A person who controls the entropy around them signals internal order. That signal is read instantly without conscious thought. A person in an inexpensive but perfectly white shirt looks more substantial than a person in a dirty luxury hoodie. This isn't an exaggeration, it's a psychological reality. Cleanliness is the first and most powerful signal. It says, I am separated from the chaos of mere survival. I have the attention and the margin to care about details. Details are the second level. Fix or discard everything broken. A cracked phone screen says, I live in chaos and I don't solve problems. Worn down shoes say, I don't finish things. Wrinkled clothing says, I stopped caring. Every broken detail is a hole in the image, and trust leaks through every hole. Posture is the third level, and perhaps the least expensive of all. It costs nothing, but a person with a straight back and a calm, unhurried gaze occupies space differently. They don't apologize for being present. The brain across from them reads that as strength, quietly, automatically, without deliberation. Body language overall speaks louder than words. Rushed, scattered movements signal anxiety. Slow, controlled ones signal certainty. You can be in a room saying nothing, and your body is already delivering a monologue. And one final element that rarely gets mentioned, scent. The olfactory brain is its most ancient part. A clean, neutral, or subtly pleasant scent closes every other channel of perception on a positive note. A sharp or unpleasant one undoes everything else you've built. None of this requires money. It requires attention. It requires the daily decision to remind yourself and the world, I am here, I am composed, and I control my environment.
But here the wolf stops and says something that matters more than everything before it. There is a difference between looking substantial and spending everything to appear successful. The first is a tool. The second is a trap. When a person buys things they can't afford in order to look like they can, they're not building an image of strength, they're building an image of fear. The fear of being seen without the mask, the fear of being found insufficient, the fear that without the external signal there is nothing underneath worth noticing. And that fear is visible, not through the object itself, through the anxiety behind it, through the need for someone to notice, through the slight desperation that leaks into the way a person wears something they stretched to afford. Real weight doesn't announce itself. It simply exists, quietly, stably, without needing confirmation. The most dangerous version of this game is when appearance becomes the only available way to feel one's own value. When every purchase is not a style choice, it's a quiet cry for recognition packaged in a branded box. When the label on the outside is compensating for uncertainty on the inside. The wolf has seen this pattern countless times. The person who owns the most impressive things and feels the most hollow. The person whose image is immaculate and whose inner life is in complete disarray. That's not strength. That's maintenance. Exhausting, expensive, endless maintenance of a performance that never quite convinces even the performer. True work on your image begins not in a store. It begins with a question, honest and without judgment.
Am I doing this because I want to, or because I'm afraid of how I'll be seen without it? When you know the answer, the choice becomes yours, genuinely yours. The world is a mirror. Show it a person in chaos, and it will treat you like chaos. Show it a person who controls their environment, who is present and composed and intentional, and it will respond differently. This isn't philosophy. It's the mechanics of human interaction, unchanged across millennia. But remember the most important thing from everything said today. Your appearance is not about deceiving the world. It is not a mask over emptiness. It is a signal to yourself and to others that you are taking responsibility for how you show up, for the space you occupy, for the impression you leave in a room long after you've walked out of it. You don't wait for the gold to appear before you polish the crown. You polish the crown now. In that decision, made every morning, in every detail, in every conscious choice about how you present yourself, the person who attracts gold gradually emerges. Not because they fooled their environment, but because they stopped fooling themselves. The wolf doesn't wear borrowed symbols. He doesn't prove his value through price tags and logos. He doesn't need the approval of people who aren't paying his bills or building his life. He simply knows who he is, and that knowledge is visible without words. It's in the way he enters a room, in the way he holds silence, in the way he doesn't rush to explain himself. You have that same knowledge. Sometimes it just gets buried under the noise of other people's expectations and your own accumulated doubts. Today you heard it a little more clearly, and that is already enough to begin.